What is up, jabronis? JJ back here from Rump Your Bets with another live video talking some tennis, a little ATP WTA, September the 6th. Got about 8 matches today. I say about. It's 8 matches. With look, what's been an interesting tournament to say the least. There's been what I'd say highs and lows, but that's kind of the norm with majors in tennis. But definitely been some levels of consistency as well. And also happy Labor Day, folks. I hope that all of you have off today, or at least if you're working, you get time and a half or whatever. Me, I like to use Labor Day to replace some of the electronics in the house. The labor forces back in the late 1800s helped us all get these gigantic sales on washing machines and dryers. So, look, take advantage of it. All right, so we could just, I know you hear my voice a little raspy. It's that time of the year. We can start with the men's side, right at the start of it, 12 o'clock match. Jannik Sinner, Sasha Zverev. Sinner's been excellent. I know I liked Monfils. Oh, I guess real quick, a recap from the video with spread, right, from Saturday. We went 2-1 with our collective plays. Spread hit with Brooksby. I lost with Monfils, and then I hit the 2-teamer to even out. So overall, a profitable show, which is all we can really ask for. Good call by spread with Brooksby. Now, so I mentioned that because I had Monfils versus Sinner, and I'll tell you what, 5 sets or 3-set matches that have gone to 3 sets or 5 sets this year. Woof! The ROI is kind of ridiculous in a negative fashion for me. It was nice to see Monfils gain a lot of momentum, and you figure a guy like him picks up that kind of momentum. Not that he's a sure thing to win by any means, but you would figure he's got the crowd on his side, and he just couldn't close. But look, credit to Sinner, who played phenomenal. Sinner's had what I'd consider an easy road up till Monfils, and Monfils really tested him. And granted, he had the crowd against him, in this case, Sinner. But look, Sasha's just been so consistent. I know Jack Sock had to retire from injury, and who knows what could have happened if Sock went a little further there, or was able to go a little further there, not having the injury. But again, another match where Zverev looked really good. What he's been doing really well has been serving above his typical standard on this hard court run. And his second serves, he hasn't had as much issue with them. The double faults have been down. And that's pretty critical. Think about 1 total break point showed 4 sets versus Jack Sock. And then granted, look, Zverev's had a pretty easy road himself. Look, Sam Querrey's no pushover. Ramos as well, kind of no pushover. But again, guy's just handling business. He hasn't lost. He's lost a match since July 5th. He's won like 14 straight matches. He's been in incredible form. Now, don't get me wrong, Jannik Sinner's also been playing really well. And hard court wasn't really his specialty when he came up. He's still super young. I think he's only like 19 or 20. But he was originally much better on clay when he first came up. But he's adjusting more to hard courts. And look, he's got a really not a big serve, but he's got big weapons offensively. And look, the serve can bail him out from time to time. But look, against Sasha here, he's going to be really outmatched. You're going to figure in a lot of these lengthy rallies or exchanges, they're all going to go to Zverev, or most of them should anyway. And I don't think anything Sinner can do is really going to push Zverev off. Zverev moves very well, hits very hard. He's a good medium player in terms of a guy that has a jack of all trades, if you will, while on the court. He's not like a serve bot, and he's not a guy that just moves well. Does a little bit of both really well. It's why you've seen him kind of rise up the ranks recently, especially like a guy like Tsitsipas. Here, though, to me, Zverev probably has too much power overall for him over the course of a match, along with the movement. Look, 575, I don't want any part of it. The total, 34.5 is a bit light. Sasha would really have to handle him in straights, which he could, but it's not a spot I really want to target. And as for the spread, you have to lay 6.5 games with Sasha. I'd rather, if you're going to set a lay in 7 games, I'd rather play the under there, because he could win 6-4, 6-4, 6-4, not cover. Game goes under easily. I know that the game spread keeps you alive. If Sinner wins a set and Zverev like 6-1s him, then you're alive for the game spread. But again, I'm just going to avoid this match entirely. This is not a match I really want to mess with. I know it's one of the early ones, but not a match I really want any part of. Okay, so Riley Opelka versus Lloyd Harris. 2 players who have very recently found a tremendous amount of form. What's up, Wild and Kyle? So Now, these two met recently, August 12th, I believe. I guess I could confirm that. Now, Lloyd Harris closed in that match at like minus 140-ish. The reason I know that is because I had been on Opelka in that match at minus 105 when it basically opened. And Harris saw a lot of steam. Now, I watched the match, and I felt like it was one of those wrong play wins, if you will. Lloyd Harris forced a tremendous amount of break points. He hit a ton more winners, or at least it felt like he did watching the match. The problem was he couldn't close another tiebreak late. But I mean, Opelka just showed a ton of exposure there, and Harris was really getting. And to be clear, let's not forget that Toronto tournament was where Opelka looked really good. I mean, Opelka made it to at least the semis, right? No, he made it to the finals in that tournament, so he looked really good in there. I personally have not loved what I've seen from Opelka in this tournament. Now, I know that he beat Basile in his last match, 3-0. But that was a shaky 3-0. That wasn't like that wasn't like an easy peasy 3-0. Basile did him a bunch of favors, especially in the double faults category. I know he might have only had 6, but when he had them, they were all at like really bad times, especially in the first set during the tiebreak. Musetti, I thought he played well against, and Kwan, I thought he played well against. But what I really didn't like as much was how Opelka started those matches. Opelka had showed multiple break points in all 3 matches thus far in the first set. And Lloyd Harris, if there's one thing he does really well, it's start off really well. And he's actually only lost, I think, like 1 or 2 first sets out of his last matches he's won, because he played Zverev, which he lost, Nishikori, which he lost. But I mean, matches he's won, which is like his last 8 matches, he's won the first set, I think, in all of them. He's a guy that plays really well early. And of course, he has the big serve. Both these players have big serves. But you look at the total here, 42.5, might be 43.5 now. Let me pull this up, actually. This is a high total, but look, expected to be high. It's 43.5, between 40, basically 44. The reason why it's going to be high is because it's hard to imagine you're going to see many 6-3, 6. You're definitely not going to see many at all double breaks in a set. At least you certainly shouldn't see them. Again, you're going to see a ton of free points. This is almost going to be a match that could be somewhat unfun to watch. I remember watching these two about a month ago and watching the just tremendous serving from both, between the mixing it up of kick serves. And look, we know Rowley can hit the high 130s. Harris can hit mid 130s. So both of them have tremendous speed in their serves. But here's the thing. What I do like in this match is Lloyd Harris, first of all, to win the first set. I like that for half a unit. And then I also like Lloyd Harris to win the match. Now, you can at minus 105. Now, last night it was plus 105, but we'll do it for this at minus 105. The reason I like Lloyd Harris here is because specifically there have been a lot of unforced errors by Opelka in this U.S. Open, which I wasn't seeing from him in Toronto. Now, Toronto, he was keeping a lot of rallies alive. It was almost like he was good in that venue, because then he went to Cincy and he just wasn't the same player. Like, he drops a set to Mute, and then he loses outright to Rude. And I'm just seeing a lot of balls that he was getting back over with ease, if you will, in Toronto. Hasn't been the same here. And even in the U.S. Open, he's been having a tremendous amount of unforced errors. And I'll tell you what they might even call forced errors, like, it's not as big of a deal, right? But I was seeing him forced into tough shots, hitting winners in Toronto, and that just hasn't been the same here. I mean, look, 41 unforced in 3 sets. It's a lot of unforced errors in just a 3-set match. Now, Basile put a lot of pressure on him offensively, and that was probably what forced a lot of those errors. But look, expect Lloyd Harris to put a tremendous amount of pressure there. And let's not forget, Lloyd Harris just beat Shapovalov, okay? Shapovalov, I know, has kind of been like in and out of his own head recently. But I mean, 23 unforced errors from Harris in 3 sets for Shapovalov. I mean, that's incredible. And, it's not like he's done anything to prove he doesn't belong here. I mean, Lloyd Harris is another one. Look at his losses. Zverev, Opelka in 3 sets, which is a match we just talked about. He lost also to Nishikori. So I think it's very similar all around. Now, Opelka doesn't seem to lose to poor players, at least not in this recent form. But Lloyd Harris is far from a poor player. He should be ranked much higher than his 46. People might also forget he recently beat a guy named Nadal, about a month ago. So Harris is playing really well. And I just think the form I've seen from Opelka in the U.S. Open has not been the same form I saw from him in Toronto. I was backing Opelka. I was basically riding him that entire tournament in Toronto, but I have not seen that same level. And Harris, I've seen practically the same level I've seen from him recently. Now, of course, the issue with Harris is he's another player that might not exactly show up, but he does seem to get emotionally rattled at times during matches. Of course, Opelka is going to get the home crowd behind him today. But overall, I just think the price is too cheap. I know that I liked Opelka the last time around when I felt he was in better form. This time around, I don't think he's in the same form. So I think you're getting a good price on first set plus full match with Lloyd Harris. So I think you split it down the middle. Now, again, you can play it like I know FanDuel offers to win first set and win the match. The problem is that it wouldn't surprise me if Harris lost the first set but won this match. I think you can get that like plus 170 on FanDuel. But again, I don't necessarily love that because honestly, I'd rather split it down the middle. I'd rather pay a half for the first set and then pay a half for the full match. Because I guess to be honest, you could do this in a unique way, right? You could play Lloyd Harris to win the first set. I'm sorry, Lloyd Harris to win the first set and win the match on FanDuel for half a unit, right? And if he wins the first set, and then you're potentially cruising for the match, right? Or you can make that bet and then live bet Harris after that. So maybe that's the better approach for you guys. I hope that makes sense. But in actuality, Lloyd Harris to win first set, plus 105. That was on DK. It was on DK, actually. I don't know if that's the same price now. Hold on. I don't want to bang you guys with a shitty line. All right, so it's minus 105 now. So minus 105, 5 DK, and then Lloyd Harris. Imagine if typing would work, and then Lloyd Harris to win the match, minus 105, both half unit. But again, you can get creative if you're available to make live bets. My advice would be on FanDuel, bet him to win first set and win the match at half a unit. And then if he loses the first set, that line's going to swing to like Harris plus 250 or plus 200. Then you can go a half unit back on Harris live money line. It'll basically wind up being similar payouts, but with actual more upside, to be honest, because of the double odds you're getting there. Okay, so and less risk, to be honest. If Harris wins the first set, you have a little less risk there. But either way, again, whatever teaches them or her own. But that's what I like for this match. All right, so Matteo Berrettini versus Oscar Otte. I've said this before. Otte is an over machine. He has been a guy that doesn't exactly lay down and tends to always play up to his competition. I was surprised how good he looked versus Seppi. Not to say that I haven't seen Otte look good in this tournament. He's just like Seppi's just a guy that Otte would typically lay down against. You got to like what you saw with Berrettini versus Ivashka, right? We talked about the line with spread in that match and how minus 200 was probably a fairly cheap number for Berrettini. And Ivashka played really well in that match. He actually forced a lot more break points as well. Berrettini bailed himself out with some big first serves. And Ivashka's second serve looked really good as well. But again, in the critical moments of the match, Ivashka just seemed to not win the points that mattered. And, you could argue Ivashka should have won that match based on how it played out. But Berrettini did close it. And my thing is with Berrettini, his play has been what I would consider erratic. And he might be injured, right? So that could be what's playing it. I mean, think about this, 64 unforced errors in his last match. It's 10 plus unforced per set. It's actually closer to more than 12 per set in a 5-set match. And did none of which went to a tiebreak? Let me see. Only the first one went to a tiebreak. So again, you had fairly quick sets in terms of the service games, 6-2, 6-4, 6-2, 6-3. And yet Berrettini with 60 plus unforced errors, he just hasn't been the same type of player. Now I get it. He's winning his matches, right? And that's really what matters. I just think Otte can do enough here to trouble him. Otte's played a lot of tennis though, coming into here. But you get the extra day in between these matches. And look, I like I think about it. Otte 3-0's Kudla. He 3-1 Sonego. Sonego's got a big serve and he seemed to have no issue forcing himself some break opportunities. Now, Sonego, to his discredit, doesn't do himself a lot of favors because Sonego has the double fault issue, which isn't as big of an issue for Berrettini. But needless to say, Otte's been good in rallies. He's been really good on serve. And Berrettini, if there's one thing he's been below average recently from my eye test, is he has been below average at serve returning. Again, this has been a recent thing. Now think about it. He plays chart. He gets himself 10 opportunities in 3 sets to break, but still finds himself in multiple tie breaks with a guy like Chardy who has a big serve. Atte's certainly got a big serve and a good 1-2 punch as well with the forehands. But again, I think that Berrettini can attack Atte's backhand, and we'll see how that goes throughout the match. But the long story short here for me is I've said I like Otte overs because he's a guy that really doesn't give up and doesn't let up. So I like this match over the small number at 34.5. Some might say it's not a small number, right? Because in these types of matches, you would think like a number like 28.5, 29.5, 30.5. Those are small numbers, right? But for me, it's a small number because if Otte is to steal a set, which I believe he very well can, to me, this is an automatic cash if he steals one set. This could also go over if he doesn't steal a set, right? You get a tie break, you get a 12-13er and another tie break, and a 10er, right? You'll go 36 in 3 sets with Berrettini cashing, with Berrettini winning 3-0. I just think overall 34.5 seems like a soft number for a guy in Otte that really doesn't let up. So I know he's outmatched here and certainly outclassed here, but there's also those rumblings that Berrettini's not 100% healthy. And he did just play another 5-set match or put another 5-setter under his belt. So overall, yeah, I think with nothing to lose, this kid Otte certainly should be live here to push this over. So again, I also like that. So Otte, Berrettini, over 34.5. That's minus 110 at DK, by the way. JJ, when will you be making your next college football play? It'll likely be the Thursday night video, Chuck, because after today, after tonight's Ole Miss game and Louisville, the next college football game is Friday. So you'll have a video play for me Thursday night for Friday. Okay, so next match up. Look, the Novak and Jensen Brooksby. I continue to say this. I don't like betting Novak matches for some obvious reasons. The problem here with Brooksby is above average server. Above average returner. Not sure how relevant that's going to be here, though. He's been good at keeping rallies alive, but Novak's just going to probably put a ton of pressure on this kid's serve. Brooksby serves at about 116, which really isn't that high. Now, he's a young kid, so I'm sure that'll develop a little more. But overall, a guy serving about 116, Novak, the best return in the game, should be able to do a lot of damage on his serve. With that said, again, the Novak matches, the key thing is always handicapping Novak's motivation to really crush someone. I don't know how much that's in him today to want to do. Total's 27.5, so it's low. Spreads 9.5, so that's high. Novak could cover this easily if he wanted to. Brooksby's been a good story. This is just a really bad matchup for him. Brooksby's good when he plays like big servers because he's a good returner. And you look at who he's played thus far in this tournament. Taylor Fritz, Karatsev, his last 2. Karatsev's not somebody who has a huge serve. So that, to me, was an impressive win and a good call by spread. But a guy like Taylor Fritz, he plays well because he's a good returner, right? And Emer, who's not a big server either, but a good mover. So he's played a good mix of people in this Open. But Novak's just a whole other element. Look, could Brooksby steal a set? Maybe, but I'm not in that spot where I want to make that bet or wager. I just think much like most Novak matches, you're handicapping his levels of motivation, and I don't want to really do that today. So just going to avoid that match. Okay, so let's slide over to the women's end. Belinda Bencic and Iga Swiatek. So this is an interesting match for sure for a few different reasons. Now, these two recently met during what I'll call the Australian Open run, but the match was after the Australian Open, so whatever you classify that as. And Iga was minus 275 in that match, and now Iga's minus 125. And this is a really rare bet for me because I typically like correlated lines and finding value inside of correlated lines and kind of like buying players at their nut low, if you will, and selling players at their high. So you would argue just based on that concept alone that Iga would be a huge play for me here. But I actually like the opposite, and it's for a few different reasons. So Belinda back then, which I believe that match was in February. Yeah, it was February 27th. Iga really dismantled Bencic, but Bencic was by nowhere near in the same form she's in today. Belinda had really struggled a bit in 2020 to really find form during what we'll call during COVID, and she was struggling up until even the clay run a bit, and she just really couldn't find what I'd consider the form we're used to from her. And granted, she looked. I'm trying to see what she did in the AU Open. Yeah, not much. I mean, she won a few rounds, but she was very tipsy-turvy throughout late 2020 and even into 2021 for a bit. But it seemed like once she hit grass, she seemed to find herself some form, which was interesting because she then lost in the first round of Wimbledon. But on hard courts, she has been tremendous. She's lost one total match on hard courts. She obviously won the Olympics. She went deep into Cincy. And she lost to Teichmann. But let's be honest, Teichmann in Cincy was on quite a run herself because I believe that was where she beat was that where she beat Osaka? Pretty sure it's where she beat Osaka, right? Either way, she lost to Barty in the finals. And so I don't look at that as like a bad loss for Bencic by any means. And Bencic is 2-0 practically everybody she's played recently. Iga, on the other hand, what concerns me about her relative to this match specifically is what she's done in this tournament. Now, granted, she's been winning, right? But she plays Loeb, who's a woman who's barely ranked inside the top 200, and doesn't beat her by much. Let's be honest. And then Ferro who's a player I like. I just think she's a lot better than how her results end up showing. I watch her play, and she's got a lot of game. However, she gets bageled in the last set in the decider after going up a set against Iga. So again, another match where Iga didn't exactly like look herself, if you will, 35 unforced errors. Then you go to Kontaveit, who Kontavait's been in tremendous form, right? She won the tournament prior to this, and she's been winning every match thus far. And Iga, to her credit, put a ton of pressure on Kontaveit. But again, it's hard for me to value that win all that much because Kontaveit's got a lot of tread on those tires. I mean, no woman has played more matches than her, and she's been playing doubles as well in this major. So I'll call it a little bit of fatigue. I don't want to make excuses for why Iga won. Iga deserved to win. I'm just saying that Kontaveit's had a lot of tread on her wheels recently. Meanwhile, Bencic just kind of handling business, right? Roos, Trevisan, and Jesse. 2-0s, all of them. The Jesse match didn't even look close, to be honest. I mean, 3 total break points showed by Bencic. The big part for me with Bencic in this match, in this tournament, has been how well she's been first serving. First serves, I think, over 70% in all 3 matches. And Iga's first serve numbers have been like sub 50%. That matters because Belinda's winning like, what is it, about 75% of her first serves in this tournament. Actually, that number is probably even higher. And if she can get that many first serves in today, it's going to be tough sledding for Iga to do much on her first serves. Meanwhile, Iga on her side, her first serves have been a mess this tournament. And Bencic is one thing she's been doing tremendously during this hardcore run. It's putting a ton of pressure on opponents' serves. So I had this 110 yesterday. It's 105 today, but I still like it, so fret not. Oh, look at that. It bounced to 110. We got some late steam. This is the early match of the day, so doesn't always surprise. So here we go. Bencic plus 110 versus Iga. Money line. So I think Bencic is super live there as a dog. I know that it's not a correlated line or not a typical spot I like to do based on the line movement prior in their match in February. But again, in terms of current form, it's hard not to like Bencic in this match. All right, so Shelby Rogers, Raducanu. Yeah, what a win by Shelby, right? Upsets Barty. Raducanu, you want to talk about handling business. Sorbis Tormo has been a player that's been playing really well recently. And, I mean, she didn't even stand a chance against Raducanu, a player who has not dropped a set all tournament. But look, Shelby Rogers, look who she's beating, right? Obviously, she beats Barty. She beats Kristea, who that's by no means a hiccup. I mean, an easy win. And then Brangle, which, Brangle hasn't been in the best form recently. But look, she's been playing well, right? Raducanu's been impressive, though. But Raducanu now is $160, so you're paying for that level of impressiveness. And this is just a match I don't really want a part of. I think Shelby Rogers is not a player who would win a match against Barty and then kind of like lay down afterwards. You see that, right? When players win like a career winning type match and then just kind of lay down the match after. Shelby Rogers has been around. That wouldn't be the way she would approach this. But Raducanu has just been super impressive, right? It's hard to like Raducanu for me though at this price because she's been a semi pick'em / dog for the last few matches, and now you got to lay $160 against a player who just beat Barty. So I'm not in love with this line by any means. I definitely don't want any part of the total, so we can just move on. Pliskova versus Pavlyuchenkova. Yeah, so this match has actually seen some late steam. This match last night was about $160. Now it's $180 in favor of Pliskova. For me, this is a bit of a tale of two forms. Pavlyuchenkova does seem to get up for these opens, but Pliskova has just been on a whole other level recently. Her serve has been incredible, which is always usually is, but when she's out of form, sometimes she tends to get into like a double fault habit and a second serve habit. She's been great though. Tomljanovic, I thought looked really good in that match. I know that Pliskova won pretty handily, especially in the second set. But watching that match early on, Tomljanovic looked really crisp. She even forced a bunch of early break points. Pliskova just saved them all. Think about it. Pliskova lost 3 total points in her first serve out of 35. 20 aces in a 2-set match. Now, granted, she still had struggled a little bit with double faults, but whenever she got herself into a corner, she bailed herself out with that big serve. 33 winners, 24 unforced. That's going to win you most matches. But that's how it has to be against Tomljanovic. Now, a player that acts as a backboard. Pavlyuchenkova is going to try to hit Pliskova with power back towards her, which is a little different than Tomljanovic was doing or could do. But with that said, Pavlyuchenkova will likely pile up more unforced errors. So this is going to really come down to who's better with the racket in terms of winners and unforced errors. And it's likely that Pliskova turns out. Now, to me, this line's a little bigger than what I'd like it to be. I'd actually like this to be about $155. The fact that it's 180 makes me stay away. And I don't love Pavlyuchenkova in this spot because for me, you'd have to get a bad version of Pliskova, which you haven't gotten recently. And I'm not going to make a bet hoping that happens. Total, you can flirt with it. But again, I'm just going to stay away from this match. Last but not least, Maria Sakkari versus Queen B, Bianca Andreescu. Yeah, so to me, Bianca's looked incredible this tournament. You always worry about her fitness levels, especially recently with injury and how much lack of being on the court, if you will. She hasn't really had a tough test, though, right? Golubic would be the player I would assume to be her toughest test. Lauren Davis has been way out of form, and Minin has by no means been in good form. And actually, she's not even ranked inside the top 100, so it's tough to really weigh that match. But Bianca looked incredible. One of the easier matches she's had to play in quite some time. We haven't seen one of those 6-1, 6-2s from her in a while. Meanwhile, look at who Sakkari's beaten in this tournament. I mean, Kasiak, who's an incredible young player, much better than her 55 rank. Sinikova, who is by no means a easy player to beat in any scenario. She typically doesn't lose to bad players, and she's been better on hard courts as well. And then there's her most recent win, which is, of course, against Kvitova, which was probably the most impressive out of all of them, especially with how she did it. And showing up very few break points. So it kind of scares me here. I want to bet Bianca at plus 130 as a quote-unquote value play. And Bianca, let's also note that there's a narrative here. She hasn't lost a single match in the U.S. Open ever, 10-0 or 11-0, I believe. So she loves playing here. She loves playing with the U.S. crowd. Sakkari is just a really good player, though, and I don't know. This will be the first time. My issue with Bianca is I'm trying to look back. When was the last time she beat a really good player? You got to go back. You got to go back a pretty lengthy way before she beat a really good player. Actually, the last time she really beat a really good player was Sakkari in Miami. Was it April 1st? So she's won matches, sure, but she hasn't won many matches. I mean, Lauren Davis is ranked in the top 100, but I mean, she hasn't been informed by any means. And Golubic is in the top 45, but again, it's not a great elite player, if you will. Sakkari is now, of course, a player in the top 20 who's been playing really well, having a great season. That's what scares me is Bianca really hasn't beaten a great player this year, at least in recent memory for the last 4 or 5 months. And that's what scares me off this line. So I want to bet Bianca, but I know that the looming elf in the room that she hasn't really beaten a great player, and I don't know if I want to target her at only plus 130 in this spot. She does make sense, though. She'll be on prime time. They did the right thing. She's a fun player to watch, so they put her on the last match of the evening. But overall, this will be a stay away spot for me. So again, that kind of wraps it up. I gave you guys basically 3 best bets that I like. And overall, we can hold on one second. See spread? No, I assume spread you were talking. I know I was talking about, but I assume you were talking about the Bencic match, right? So I'd start there. Let's make some money. Thinking Queen B wins tonight. I don't know. Yeah, Alejandro, I don't mind this at all. As I said, my worry with Bianca has been her lack of inability to beat good players, especially players in good form. So interested to see how this match plays out, but it does make sense to potentially back the dog, but I'm going to stay away myself. But overall, thanks as always for watching, folks. Ran this down. Just to recap best bets. I like Lloyd Harris to win the first set and Lloyd Harris to win the match. You can split them down the middle at half unit each. I like the Berrettini match over 34.5 versus Otte. That's -110. And I also like Bencic, which is a match going to start in 30 minutes, as a live dog +110 versus Iga. Other than that, I might be back with a vid tonight to run down tomorrow's card, maybe. Or I might just do a free pick, but I'm not sure. It depends on my day goes. But regardless, thanks as always for watching. Always appreciate you guys checking in. And watching what we're all about here at Rumpure. Head over to our site, Rumpure Sports, RumpureBets.com. Code BETS25 off gets you 25% all of the betting content. And again, I think it's if you get them together, like if you get the DFS price and then merge it with the code GetBets, you will get both for about $80 a month or $100 a month. You'll get both. So awesome on that front, and love to hear it. Love to hear it, Alejandra. And thanks, Fred. But overall, as always, folks, gamble responsibly. Be sure to stay safe. And look, enjoy the day off, whether you're going to barbecue, spending time with family, friends, or if you're just kind of being a DJ and watching tennis or watching whatever. Look, enjoy the day. Take a little breather, right? We all deserve a breather. All right. So as always, folks, gamble responsibly, stay safe, and run pure.